Well, we all look for love, don't we, as human beings? This is obviously one of the core motives of our existence. Anyone who pretends otherwise is probably a little bit deluded or prefers to play down the importance that loving and being loved plays in their life out of maybe as defense mechanism kind of logic. And so certainly the INFJ is no exception. And in keeping with my intent, the intent I had with my book, The Infinite Soul, to go into, details of INFJ life in the modern world, which is also its subtitle, I have dedicated a chapter to love. This is not something you'll find, for example, in the Ecstatic Soul, which is much more focused on a study of and research into the contents of the INFJ mind and its existential manifestation. Both books are quite complementary, and you can find them at the link below if you're interested to get them. But again, the Infinite Soul, this little book, looks more at the concrete manifestations in a world that is often hostile to us. And so I do discuss love, and I wanted to read a little extract from the book, since these extracts that I've been reading, there's many of you who seem to be enjoying them. So I said, why wouldn't I read another little extract? And this one is about love. The chapter is called, to be perfectly precise, it's called Falling in Love. So you can't be any more direct than this, I guess. And it's a chapter that looks at the different aspects of INFJ love, what I consider to be what I think is more dysfunctional INFJ love, what is more functional INFJ love, and of course, what is infinite love, or love from the infinite attitude, love from the infinite perspective. And there is this little subsection of the chapter called Making the Relationship Work that I think is illustrative of what this chapter contains. And maybe, again, this is in the style of the book, so maybe you like hearing a bit more about it. Okay, so here I go. Again, it's called Making the Relationship Work. Of course, you'll notice straight away that I use concepts that I have developed in the book, as well as in the Ecstatic Soul, which further illustrates that the two books work together. Okay? So here we go. The haziness of prescience, straight away the concepts that we're familiar with, entails that you as an INFJ will have a rather peculiar way of talking, or rather of taking a relationship seriously. The constant search for meaning, for going back to the source in sometimes banal situations, risks depriving you of all spontaneity in the relationship. You might appear thoughtful, concerned, contemplative perhaps, in contexts that rather encourage plain fun. In fact, you would rarely ever be described as someone fun. You ponder a lot, even when you're at a theme park, say. You have moments of withdrawal during a walk with your partner. You can only bear social events at the restaurant or on the beach with heroic fortitude, unless you find some polite way of excusing yourself from time to time. I have been there myself, and I have been no doubt that if you're an INFJ, you have been there as well. Things get even thornier when it comes to your partner, which might sometimes take this personally and feel neglected. You assure them that it's not your intention. In fact, you could not be more sincere in this. But how are they supposed to trust that? You can't exactly turn to them and say that you're busy keeping your relationship aligned with the eternal. They'd think you mad. In practice, the best approach is to keep the line of communication open at all times and strive for maximal transparency. You can, and you actually should do this even prior to formalizing the relationship or making it official. Don't tell a date that you're under the spell of the love archetype, or at least not on the first date. Wait until the third or fourth date if you really can't restrain yourself. But do tell your date that you have a tendency to lose yourself in thought, and that when it happens, they have no ground for worry. It's just the way you are, and if it is not for them, well, at least you know there is no compatibility there. Many years ago, I remember telling someone I tended to be anxiously attached in intimacy, which is the case, I think. They said they were avoidant, and we didn't see each other again clearly was for the best. As the relationship matures, you can, of course, discuss this tendency of yours in more detail with your partner. Doing this is sure to solidify your bond further. In a sense, I see great practical potential in this book. because it will give you the vocabulary to enrich and diversify the kinds of conversations you're bound to have with others, beloved or not. There is no escaping from words and expressions in communication, and the more of them you have at your disposal, the better you will be able to express your thoughts rightly and in such a way as to be understood by your interlocutor. Keep in mind at all times that communication is a two-way street, which means that your partner will also enrich your understanding by giving their perspective. The last thing you want is to have got this far only to fall back into the trap of the finite attitude. You and your love are ever-evolving things, and the archetype agrees. It can only agree since its temporality is time-gathered, not pure timelessness. It too is expansive, though it moves extremely slowly. If you stop feeding the archetype with new experiences, it will die. It will become a lifeless concept, which is similar to death for an archetype, which is a symbol. So open yourself to the new experiences your partner will suggest, because your partner probably knows you better than you think. Open yourself up, exit your comfort zone, and leave it to the archetype to decide what to immortalize. Introverted intuition is not the INFJ's comfort zone, but rather the means to it. NI is not a state, but a function which regulates the transactions between the self, the I, and the archetypes. The self with a small s self, by contrast with Jung's big S self, for those who get the reference. Given the location of the archetypes deep in the psyche, those transactions are always perceptual in nature, and their introverted orientation induces a contemplative state. When the INFJ appears to be somewhere else to their partner, they are likely absorbed in that state of contemplation, which I also call visiting the NI world. It is implied in all I have said before that contemplation, this foremost comfort zone of the INFJ and of the NI lead in general, ought not to be exercised from experience. Your comfort zone remains comforting only to the extent that you're able to exit it on certain occasions, and talking to your partner can help you define these occasions. This is an important passage, so pay attention. From what I've seen, the major obstacle seems to be that the INFJ state of contemplation is too easily confused with distraction, caused by lack of interest in what the other is saying, or with a state of being preoccupied with some earthly matter which, adding to the partner's concern, cannot be expressed when requested to. Is he lying to me? Is he thinking about someone else? What is he hiding from me? Is he losing interest? Am I boring him? Many such questions may pop up in the other person's mind, which obviously erodes trust if repeated over and over. Rarely, it turns out, does it suffice for the INFJ to answer that they are thinking about nothing in particular, even if it's true. Nothing can better counteract the adverse effects of this than constant and open communication. And a culture of transparency is usually best embedded from the very start of a relationship. As your partner slowly gets a better grasp of how you operate, they will not only show more patience, but suggest ways you might take a break from all that thoughtfulness. They might teach you the hidden virtue of levity, of playfulness, which so often passes INFJs by. The key to INFJ fulfillment in love resides in this fragile equilibrium between the comfort of contemplation and the happy playfulness that life invites us into if only we allow ourselves to be guided. To trust your partner is also to trust them to know what's good for you and how much of it is good for you. So I could go on, because there's a few more paragraphs to this, but I just wanted to give you a little taste. So hopefully you enjoyed this passage. Let me know in the comments what you think. By the way, this book needs more reviews, so if you loved it, go on Amazon and drop a review. I will be most grateful. You can help me with keeping the channel going in these difficult times by supporting me on Patreon. There's a link down below. That you can interact with me there. You can ask me questions. We do some Jung excerpt readings and get some bonus content from time to time, and it really massively helps me and the channel, so please consider it. And I will talk to you very soon, guys. In the meantime, take care.